In this video, we'll be making this hamburger menu with animation. Loads of websites use this kind of menu for mobile, but some even use it for desktop. By the end of this video, you'll know how to make a navigation bar with a hamburger icon that is custom designed using CSS, add simple yet sleek animation to your icon, design a drop-down menu with navigation options, and animate this menu to make it stand out. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing you'll want to do is get Live Server from the extensions marketplace if you don't have it already. I've already got it running, and then you want to make a HTML page. It should pop up at the bottom saying go live or something like that, and then it will bring up this local host page. So once you've got that running, you want to do exclamation mark and then tab, and that will make our boilerplate code. And we've got an index.css here as well, blank, and a logo. So find some sort of image to use as a logo as well. What I'm going to do first is just call this hamburger menu website. And then we need to link in our CSS. So we're going to do link, and then relationship is style sheet. And then our href is going to be index.css, and you can call that styles.css or whatever you want, but I'm just doing that. Now we need to get some of our items. So we're going to have a div, and this is going to have a class of nav container. Then inside of that, we're going to have another div, and that's going to have a class of nav content. Inside this nav content, you're going to have your image, and the source is logo.png, and also add a alternate text of something like logo. And then we're going to also have a div, which is going to have a class of menu icon and a ID of icon, and we also need an on click, because when we click this, our animations and our navbar and stuff are going to show up. So let's just leave the on click blank for now. And then inside of this we need spans. And you can do this with other things, but I'm just going to do it with spans because I think that's easiest. And these are going to be our 3 lines for the hamburger bar. So now if you look on your live server and reload it quickly, you're going to see that we have our logo and nothing else, because we haven't done any CSS to make it do anything else yet. But that's fine. So we're going to go into our index.css, and we're going to do star, and then margin 0, and then padding 0, and box sizing of border box. And this will hopefully reset most of the things that are going to be problematic. I'm just going to set the body to have a background color so it's not white, so it looks a bit more interesting. Let's set this to some sort of blue. Well, I'll just change it to... not sure actually. Yeah, if we have HSL is a lot easier for doing colors in CSS, I find. So let's do something like fairly dark. Okay, so we got this. This is a fairly dark theme now, but that should work for us. Now what we want is our nav container. And then in here we're going to have a height of 60 pixels and then a width of 100 pixels. Often people say you shouldn't do fixed sizes, but I'm going to do this just for the purpose of this, and I don't think it will work. I don't think it will look too bad for what we're doing. So So I'm going to also have a background color of blue, and then let's also use HSL for this. HSL 240, let's make it a bit bigger on the saturation, something like that. That's a good blue to have. And now we're going to do nav container, or nav content. Here we're going to have the same height of 60 pixels as the parent, and then we're going to change the width to 60%, and then we're going to have a margin 0, auto 0 also, that being 0 for the top and bottom, and then auto for left and right. Display flex, and justify content is going to be space between, and align items is going to be the center. And if you don't know about flex, I'll link a video in the description, and this is just an easy way to put it in the correct position, but I know it's a bit hard to learn as well. We've got our image as well, so we're just going to set this height to be 40, and let's just look at this quickly. Okay, so we got this, and I am zoomed in a bit, but this would be what it is normally, but let's just keep zoomed in so we can see it properly. So now we need to get our menu icon. So what I'm going to do is I am going to do .menu icon, and let's just set a width of, let's say 36 pixels, and a height of 24 pixels. And then let's set a background color of white so we can see where it is. Okay, so that's in a good position for us, I think, and I'll keep it similar to that. And it's a good size as well. So we want this to be position relative because we're going to do absolute positioning for each of the spans. And if we don't do position relative, it might try and do it for the other parent divs and stuff, which would not work for what we're trying to do. Yeah, so now we need to do our menu icon, and then the span items. So for each of the spans, this is going to happen. We need display block. Width is going to be the full width, so 100%. And then height is going to be just 4 pixels. Background color is going to be white. And then our border radius is going to make it rounded. We're going to have 20 pixels. And then our position absolute, we need that. And that is it for now. Then let's do menu icon, and then span, and then we need to position each of these individually. So you can't see it at the moment actually. If I get rid of this, and here you can see we've got all of these, but there's 3 of these on the top, which isn't what we want, so we need to space them out a bit. So how do we do that? We use env child. So we can do menu icon, span, and then we can do a colon, just 1 colon, env child, and then 1, and this is going to let us order our first span. And let's just copy this down. So we have 2 and 3. So what we're going to do here is we're going to just set the top to be 0 pixels for the first one, which will mean it's right at the top. And then the last one we want bottom 0 pixels. That's fairly easy as well. And then this middle one is a bit harder, but we just need to do half of the height, which is total height, which is 24, which would be 12, and then half of this height as well, because we're positioning it from the top of the span. So 12 and then 2. So 12 minus 2 is 10. So top is going to be 10 pixels. And then we got it here, and this looks great. And if we zoom out, it's about the right size for what I would want anyway, if I'm designing a page like this. So yeah, we've got this now, and that's the end of this first section. And in the next section, we're going to be animating. In the last section, we made our initial design for this nav bar, and we designed this icon. So in this part of the video, we're going to be animating this icon. So how do we do this? We need to add a class to the icon to tell it to do something else, to animate itself. So the way we do that is using our onClick. And what we're going to say is onClick, we are going to toggle a option or a class. So we're going to say document dot get element by ID, and that's why we needed a ID for this as well. Icon dot class list dot toggle, and then we're going to toggle the class of open. So if the class of open is there, it will get rid of it, and if it's not there, it will add it. And this allows us to toggle an open and close system. So now here, what we can do is we can use this. So we can say menu icon dot open, and then if it's open, we can set the background color to be red if we wanted to. So now if we go back to our project and we click this, then this will be red, but that's not quite what we want to do. What we do want to do is a similar thing though. We're going to say menu icon dot open, and then we're going to say span nth child, and then we need to do it individually for each one again. So 1, 2, 3. Let's add these in. 1, 2, 3. And then inside these, we need to do our actual animation bit. So what we want to do for number 2 is the easiest, so I'll start with that one. What we want to do is we want to shift this middle one to the left all the way, and we're also going to set the opacity to 0. But we can do transform, translate X, minus 100% of the container. So when we do this, it shifts to the left all the way, and we want this to fade out as well. But what we need to do as well is we need to add a animation to this. So we need to do transition, transform, 0.8 for 0.8 seconds, and then ease in and out. And then now if you see, this is a smoother motion, and you can use other things other than ease in, out, but that's what I use a lot of the time. And then we're also going to set the opacity here to be 0%, and we also need to add this here. So you can't do another transition like this. You have to add it into the one that we have already, otherwise it will overwrite what we've already put. So we need to say opacity, opacity, 0.8 seconds as well, and ease in out. Doesn't really matter what that is, but that's just what I use a lot of the time. So now, if we look at this, what we have is something that goes in, or it disappears and then it eases in, which is nearly what we want, but not quite. So we've got a problem with this one. So I realized what I did here was made a typo, which is fine. We can just delete this, and now it should work. So here it's working how we wanted it to. So now what we can do is the other ones, and these are a bit more complex because these are going to make a X shape. So what we want to do is I've looked at this before and checked that it works. So hopefully it works again. Is we want to do transform, rotate, and then -135 degrees for one, and then we're going to do 135 degrees for the other. So they make a cross shape. And then we're going to do translate x -8 pixels, and then translate y -7 pixels. And this was a lot of trial and error. I'm not exactly sure what the sort of formula for this would be, but this is just what I got to eventually. After about 5 minutes of playing with it to get it perfect. So here we got 135 degrees, translate x is -7 pixels, and then translate x is 7 pixels. And I believe this is right. Okay, this isn't quite right. So the problem with this one is well, let's go for it. What we've got is the X, but this is too short, it seems. But maybe this is also too short. So what I'm going to do is a trick where we say .menu icon .open, and then we're going to do span nth child 4, and then we're just going to add a new one in as well. So we're going to say the width is going to be 4, and then the height is going to be 4 pixels, pixels, and then we're going to have a top of 10, I believe, 10 pixels, and then we're going to have a left of, let's see what it is, forgot what our width is. Where is it? Here, 36. So divide that by 2 is 18, and then divide our width here, or it is just 18 here, but divide this by 2 is going to be 2, so that's 16 pixels. Left is 16 pixels, and then we can set our background color to be brown or something like that. So now what we need to do is also add this into the DOM HTML. So let's just add another span in there. And now you can see here is the actual center of it. So we need to line it up to be like that. So what I'm going to do also is going to set the third child to be a color, a different color. So let's say the color of pink. That should do. Now we can see easily which one's which. So for the pink one, we need to shift it up slightly and across. So let's try this axis first. Let's just set this to 12 and see which way it goes. And that is the correct way. So that's nearly right. And then we need to shift this axis. Let's just go to 0. And that is nearly there actually. I think this needs to be... we also... what I've realized I've done... this is funny actually. This should be translate Y. That's the problem. This should be translate Y actually, that's the problem. So I made another typo. So it might actually work how we had it before. So let's try that. And this might actually be it. Let's just zoom in a bit more. Can't see exactly. I think that's almost it. I'm assuming though that I might have made a mistake here because this is 8 and this is 7. So if we try them both at 8, that is clearly wrong. Try them both at 7. Might also be wrong. But that looks right actually. I think that's probably the correct one. So now what we can do is get rid of this pink. and get rid of this fourth child and remove it. So now what we have is this, and that's nearly there, but we need to add the animations in. So how do we do that? Very simple. We go back to our main icon span, and we're going to add in a transition, and that is going to be transform of 0.8 seconds, ease in, out. And this is okay to do with the second one as well, because it won't override the opacity, because we overwrite this anyway using our nth child. So now, if we look here, we have this nice animation, and that's going to work well. So we've designed our icon and our nav bar, and now we've added animation. So now we need to actually design the menu. So let's do that next. This next section should be the simplest yet. What we're going to do is make our menu, and it's going to be a drop down. But first we need to design it before we can add in the drop down feature. So what we need to do is go back into our HTML and add a few items. First one is going to be just inside the body, and it's going to be a div, and we're going to call it with a class of menu container, and we also need an ID of menu, because we need to interact with this with the document.getElementById, but we'll get into that in a minute. Inside of this, we want a UL, and that UL is going to have a class name of menu items. And then inside this, we want li list items. And these are going to have class of menu item. So an individual menu item, and we're also going to have a style later using a variable order. And so we need to copy these a few times, but we're going to call this first one home, probably, and then we can call the next ones whatever we want. Let's call the bottom one contact, and then maybe services, and about. Services. Okay. And this is it for the HTML for now, until the next section. So now what we can do under here is we're going to start to design our menu sort of container stuff. You can see here we've already got these items, but they're not formatted properly yet. So what we want to do is do menu container, and then we're going to do width of 100%, and then height is going to be a fixed height again, let's say 130 pixels, and then we're going to have a background color. I've already looked at this, so I'm just going to put it in. HSL 240 is similar to that actually, but 55 and 40. So it's slightly lighter than the other one. This doesn't look particularly good, but it's, it doesn't really matter for now. And it's, working. So that's fine. All we want to say in here is display flex as well. And we want to say position absolute. And top is going to be 60 pixels for now, because our nav is 60. So this makes sure it is under the nav. And then what we're going to do is we're going to leave it for that for now, and then we need to go to our menu items. In our menu items, we want a smaller width, because these are going to be the sort of buttons that we're clicking, or the menu items that we're clicking. Then we're going to have a height of slightly less than the container. Let's just say 120 pixels, because we're going to have a padding, or we're just going to align it central. So there's a bit on the top and the bottom. So we need to say display flex for this as well. And we want flex direction for the items. Flex direction is going to be column, because we want the items to go down, and then the margin is going to be auto, and the list style type is going to be none, so we don't have any bullet points or anything. And then we need to align ourselves vertically to the center. So now if we look at this, we've got this, and it's, not doing much at the moment, but we need to organize our items separately. So the first thing I want to do for each of the items is use a new font, because this one does not look good at all. So let's just use the first font that comes up, Korean U. That looks a bit better in my opinion. And then here we're going to use a width of 100% of the parent container, and then a height of 30 pixels. And then we also want padding. So we're going to say padding 5 pixels at the top, 0 on the right, 5 pixels on the left, on the bottom, and 0 on the left. And then text align is going to be central, and then font size can be 20 pixels, and then cursor pointer. So we create a pointer cursor when we are on it. So this looks a lot better, I think. You can already see it looks a bit more professional. So that's all for this section. In the next section, it's going to be the final section. We're going to animate this menu to work with our hamburger bar. In the first section of this video, we designed this hamburger icon and this top navbar. In the second one, we created this animation, and in the third, we created this menu. So in this one, we need to animate the menu and work with when we click this icon. So let's do that now. The first thing we need to do is go back into our HTML and change quite a few things with our on-click. So it's working how it is for that at the moment, but we need to add it to a few more elements. First one being the menu. So we need to say document.getElementById, and then menu, and then .ClassList.toggle, and then we're going to toggle open again. And the other one we need to do is the items here. So we need, what we're going to have is them fading in and fading out. So we need to be able to toggle that as well. So we need to do something a bit more complicated here. If we do something called document.getElements by class name, and then we do menu items, or menu item, then if we actually just console.log this, you'll be able to see that we get the individual items. So if we go into our thing here, and then inspect, and then go into our console, you can see here we get these items, and this is not a normal array, it's a HTML collection, so we need to convert this to be able to use it. So it's some sort of conversion that we need to do. So we need to do array.from, and then this in brackets, and then we need to do dot for each, and then we need to say our item, let's just call it, and we're using an arrow function here. This is just some JavaScript, but we're embedding it. And then we need to say let e equals element, or item, sorry, dot class list. And this e doesn't need to be anything in particular, it just is because we're going to be referencing this multiple times. And then we can say if e dot contains, and then we're going to have the items in and out, because it's going to be a fade in and a fade out. This is just easier. So we can do this, and if it contains in, then we're going to remove in, and then we're going to add out. Okay, so now we can do an else if, and we're going to say else if e dot contains out. Then we're going to do the opposite, so we're going to do e dot remove out, and then we're going to do e dot add in. And finally we're going to do an else if none of them are present, we're just going to e dot add in. So why are we doing this? When a user first comes onto our site, we're not going to have any sort of elements here, so we can't just toggle it normally. What we're going to have is we're going to have just our normal menu icon class. So when they first click on it, it's going to be the else, so we need to add in our in, because they're going to be wanting to fade in, open the menu. And then if they click it again when they're on the in, then we want to fade it out because they want to get rid of the menu. But if it's got the out already, meaning they've clicked on the menu more than once already, sorry, then we want to put it in again, but we want to get rid of the out, so there's no conflicts. And this is just going to be animations that we've got here. So this is fine, and now we've got all our things. But the first thing we want to do is with our menu toggle. So we want to fade this in, or drag it in from the top, basically. So what I think is going to be the best is, let's just put it down here, menu container dot open. We want to transform translate y to 0 pixels. And this doesn't make sense at the moment, but what we're going to have also is we're going to transform this anyway to minus 130, I think, because what we have here is 130, that's the menu container. We need to get this all the way out of the way so that the bottom is just here. So what we can do here as well is we can say in our menu container, we're going to say transform translate y is going to be minus 130 px. And what you can do here is just have it at 0 and then bring it down and do it, change a few things about it, change where it is initially at the top, but I'm not going to do it like this. I think this is probably an easier way to do it. So now what you should see is it's actually covering it now, so I can't change it actually, but this will be, I'll be able to toggle this. So what I'm going to do as well here is change the z index of our menu container, so this is behind it, so it drags up. So z index is minus 10. Now you can see this. So it goes there, and then it is moving, but you can't see it yet because the animation isn't there. So let's add the animation now. Under here, let's just say transition, and then it's our transform. We're changing transform. And then this is going to be 1.2 seconds and ease in out. So now you can see this is going up and down and up and down. And that's working great. So finally, we are nearly at the end. We want the menu items to fade in. So what's going to happen is each of these items are going to fade in 1, 2, 3, 4, and then when we bring it up, we're just going to fade them all out at once and bring it up. So we need to create a keyframe and call this fade in. And we use these keyframes for animations in CSS often. We're going to do to opacity 100%. And at keyframes fade out. And this one is going to be to opacity 0%. But this isn't going to work, and I'll show you in a minute why. But we'll see that. Now we can just add these menu dot menu item dot in, and then we need animation fade in 0.5 seconds, ease in out, and something called forwards, which means after the animation's done, it's gonna stay like this. And then we need menu item out, and then animation, and let's just get rid of these actually. Fade out, and it's going to be 0.5 seconds again, I guess. Ease in, out, and forwards as well. So this won't quite work, and you'll see in a minute why, I think. Yeah. So you can see the fade out is working, but the fade in isn't, because we need to first set the opacity to 0 on the menu item. But this is going to change something else and cause another problem, I believe. So on the menu item, we want opacity to be 0%. And if we do this, then you'll see it again doesn't fade in properly. But it just jumps to it too quickly. So we need to change something else. So with our fade out, we need to say from opacity is 100%. Just because that's how it works for some reason. So you can see now our fade out is working, but our fade out still, our fade in, still isn't working properly, obviously. What we can do here is for our fade in, let's just set this to 5 seconds. And now you can see that it actually works because our animation isn't dragging down quick enough for us to see it. So this is where we bring in our animation delay and our CSS variables. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say style equals, and then we're going to do something different, which is you're using variables. So we can say -- order, and then set that one to 0. And then copy this for all of them and set the order to increase 1, 2, 3. And now what we can do is we can set a delay in the in. So we can say instead, or as well as our animation fade in, we can say animation delay is going to be, we need to calculate it. So we need to use our calc function, and then our var function, because this is a variable, then order, and then multiply that by 0.3. So one will start every 0.3 seconds, and then add 1.2 seconds. So for the 0th term, or the 0th one, it will start after 1.2. For the next one, it will start at 1.5, and so on. So now you can see this. And you can change the speeds of this, obviously, and make it faster, slower. This maybe is a bit slow. But yeah. And now you've done it. You've created your hamburger bar and menu bar using animations in CSS. And I think these look fairly good. And they will definitely impress people. I hope you enjoyed this video. It took a lot of time to make. And if you could subscribe, that would be very appreciated.